Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Live at the Front Line with Joe Pasillo. Thanks for joining me again this morning. Remember that I am one half of the Front Line with Joe and Joe, which goes live Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and we love the fact that you support us all here. We, along with our producer, decided that we were going to add some content during the week just to talk about some things, just to keep the conversation going. The last thing we want to do right now in this culture war is to be silent. So in as much as I have to go to work in a little while and we all have lives and everything else, I'm going to take a little time to talk about some of the nonsense that's going on out there and keeping you all abreast of that. Now, having said that, just remember a couple things, please. Joe and I are on the Crusade channel at crusadechannel.com. We highly suggest that you check that out. We are also on the Veritas Catholic Network. That's out of Connecticut. However, they do have a mobile app, the Veritas Catholic Radio Network mobile app that you could download. Joe and I have some fantastic interviews on there. You could find that on our Facebook page. We're also live on Rumble today, which we're very happy, and we want to greet all you folks listening to us on Rumble. We're trying to diversify in the social media department so that we can make sure that we're not held hostage by YouTube. Unfortunately, right now, to a degree, we are. But yeah, Veritas Catholic Radio Network mobile app. You could find that on Facebook on our page, and you could download that. We have an interview coming up, or that broadcast with Bishop Athanasius Schneider and a whole host of other people in the Catholic world talking about a lot of different topics. So we'd ask you to please download that app wherever you are. And finally, frontlinetv.com. The frontlinetv.com is where you could support us and our little enterprise here, which is little, but growing every single day, thanks to your support. So we really appreciate that. And if you're looking for wherever you see us on social media, please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you. All right. Like the video if you like it. We're not forcing you to do anything. But like, subscribe, and share, particularly about what we're going to be talking about today. Share. We need to share. We're always told by the left, you have to share. We have to share everything. You have to share your soul, I guess, with everybody. What we want you to do is share our comments on the nonsense that's going on out there so that we can continue the conversation on a broader level when it comes to people like Klaus Schwab. Okay, Klaus. Klaus is at it again. All right. So we have to talk about Klaus because Klaus is out there talking about you and me and Jonathan Ross, our producer, and Joe Rossinello and all of us. Because what Klaus is, I could come up with a number of different ways to describe Klaus Schwab. Okay. The main way I look at him as a false prophet. Now, whether or not he's the false prophet, I don't know. I don't know if Antichrist is in the world. I'm not saying the Antichrist is or is not. But Klaus Schwab is one of those people that reminds me of a false, or how the Bible would refer to a false prophet, a prophet of doom and gloom. But at the same time, he's optimistic because he's a prophet of the one who is to come, the false Christ or the anti-Christ. And how do they do that? You have to wonder to yourself, all you good people listening to me out there at Live at the Front Line with Joe Pasillo. How do they sell these things? We all know it's nonsense. We all know all of it, whether it's, the temperature goes from 90 degrees in one place to 89 degrees the next year in that same place on the same day. And they say, oh, it's a catastrophe of global proportions. Okay. So how do they sell that? How did the My Sharona? I think all you good folks out there know where I'm going with the My Sharona. Okay. My Sharona. Okay. How do they sell that? Fear. It's what we say all the time. They can't get what they want. Every totalitarian regime needs to sow fear amongst the citizens. Okay. Now, you could go back to Nero for that. Okay. How do you sell lining the streets with the burning bodies of Christians in those streets? Okay. And lighting the streets with their burning bodies. You have to sell fear to the people. We need to fear these people. Okay. They're a religious cult that will take over the Roman Empire, which the church did. However, and that's how you could justify things. How does one justify, let's say, the murder of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. Okay. So fear. Okay. You have to watch these Jews. You show fear by pointing out that we should fear the Jews. It's the same way when it comes to what we're going through now. So you have to make people fear that the world is coming to an end. And even if the world globally is not coming to an end, well, you're going to come to an end because of the My Sharona. Okay. And what are you supposed to do in this case when all this fear is around? What is the solution that Klaus Schwab is offering? Give the governments of the world more power. That's it. That is the end game. And that's really what I want to talk about, because a lot of you good people out there listening to my voice, we all know what the game is. But then what is the end game? What is the final destination of all of this? And I want to get to that in a second, but let's talk about what Klaus Schwab started to say first. He said, the time has come. This was in Breitbart. I want to credit Simon Kent as a source for the article that where I got some of this information on Klaus Schwab. The time has come for world governments to unite as one and tackle global problems such as climate change, trade, and economic disruption without hindrance or delay, World Economic Forum founder and executive chairman Klaus Schwab announced on Wednesday. The unelected globalist, let's repeat that, unelected globalist issued his demand, a demand, during a keynote speech on the opening day of the World Government Summit 2022 in Dubai, saying that the world can only be improved by more government cooperation at all levels. Let's dissect that first of all. This is not government cooperation. It will initially look like that. Oh, the United States is working with France and Germany, okay, and England and Italia and all these countries throughout the world, okay, and they're cooperating to tackle these existential threats, like temperatures changing 1 degree year over year in Paris or wherever the case might be. It starts out as what seemingly looks like cooperation, but that is only that's just the way they present it. Well, look, isn't it wonderful? We're all cooperating. So what's wrong with going one more step? Well, what would that step be, Mr. Schwab? What would that step be? Well, being that we're already cooperating, why don't we just make one government and every nation will be represented, and that'll be the next step. And then the final step after that will be, well, nations don't have to be represented because for all intents and purposes, there are really no individual nations. All the individual nations gave their power over to this international organization. So why don't we have what we really de facto have? Why don't we have it de jure in law, which is one world government? I say at the front line with Joe and Joe all the time, okay? 15, 18 years ago, the only person that I can recall, I mean, there were many out there in lesser media outlets, okay? I don't mean lesser in a pejorative way. I just mean less widely known. The only person in quote unquote mainstream media that was really talking about this at the time was Glenn Beck. And Glenn Beck was dismissed as a conspiracy nut, okay? Because when you talk about New World Order, okay, and you could demonstrate it through reasoned argument. You could connect the dots, as many people do. I just happen to remember in my experience, it was Glenn Beck. And I remember people like even conservatives like Sean Hannity would kind of like poo-poo that idea, this idea of the New World Order. That's just conspiracy theory. Glenn Beck turned out to be right. How do we know that? Because now it's in your face. Klaus Schwab is telling you. Okay, along with his little gay friends, his puppet, who's out there talking about transhumanism, the Israeli guy. I forgot his name. I apologize, but that is the front line with Joe and Joe. If I forget his name, I call him that guy. All right, I'm from Jersey after all. That guy. Well, that guy, you could look him up. He's talking about transhumanism and this idea that you're going to attach the human body and the human brain to a machine. In other words, and it's very nefarious. It's very evil. I lump them all in with false prophets, okay? They're the prophets of things to come. But let's talk about this for a second. What's the problem with trade? They created it. They created the problem with trade. They created the problem with the oil shortage right now. That's why I paid $5 a gallon in Arizona, Okay, $5 a gallon the other day when I filled up my tank. They created the trade problem, the supply problem, both in energy and the products that are on the shelves. They create the problem of temperatures changing from 1 degree to another in one particular place in the world as though that's a global catastrophe. They created that problem. It's not a problem that exists. The trade problem exists, but it's a problem that was created by the people that want to say, look, there's a trade problem. Right. You're the ones who created the problem. Why don't you stop with the policies, if you want to call them even policies? That might be giving them too much credit. Okay. Um, and Jesse, thank you. Yuval Noah Harari. You have to watch out for that dude. Okay. He was bragging about the fact that he met his gay husband to Anderson Cooper, bragging about he met him online. I don't like that dude. He's a spooky dude. That's what Glenn Beck used to call these guys, spooky dudes. He's a spooky dude. Okay. But they created all these problems. They created the economic disruption. And then after having created the disruption, they say, well, give us the power that we need and we can address the problem. No, you are the problem. The problem is not that we don't have enough oil. Donald Trump proved that. Okay. The problem is you guys. You guys have too much power now. And again, you have to ask yourself a question. Why did they get rid of Donald Trump? Notice I choose my words carefully. Why did they get rid of Donald Trump? Because you did not get rid of Donald Trump. For all his faults, you were willing to vote for him again. Okay. Why did they get rid of Donald Trump? I would argue that it's for these reasons. What are the first couple of things that Trump did? He got us out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, get out of these global entanglements. He got us out of the Paris Climate Accords, get rid of that global entanglement. Okay, he got us out of those things. But those are necessary for the New World Order. Now, if you ask me, yes, Trump was pro-life. He acted on his pro-life view. He wasn't always that way, but he was the most pro-life president in my lifetime. Any president could go further, okay, until abortion is outright banned. Okay, there's always a further step, but he did more than George Bush. He did more than the pro-lifers in the House and the Senate. Okay, much more. Okay, was it because he was pro-life? I don't think so. Even though pro-life, the pro-death position is also part and parcel of the New World Order. Okay, Trump started to get us out of global entanglements. Okay. And Klaus Schwab wants us firmly entrenched in global entanglements. Schwab, going back to the article by Simon Kent in Breitbart, Schwab, who called on policymakers for a great reset. We've all heard that. I wonder what we're resetting. Okay. You created the problems that now need a reset, but I don't want your problems. And I don't want your solution to those problems that you created. See how it goes in a circle? Schwab, who called on policymakers for a great reset during the Sharona pandemic, said the, quote, fourth industrial revolution has arrived and enduring change is on the way. Now, I want you all to feel the vibe of this crap, okay? This is a direct quote from Klaus. Quote, the impact of the fourth industrial revolution accelerates global change in a much more comprehensive and faster way than previous industrial revolutions. Despite all the challenges, we have to uphold the responsibility we have towards the next generation through collaborations on a national and global level. Our futures are intrinsically connected, and that requires collaborative processes. Okay. No, my future is not entwined with you. You see, that's why they have to sell global climate change, because America can't, in their narrative, America can't remain America completely, okay, because it's a global problem. So what you do in Nebraska, if you're driving a pickup through the cornfield, actually affects some poor village in Africa or Asia. So no, you can't be nationalistic, okay? You can't be a nationalist because what you do, even using a hairdryer, not that I have much use for a hairdryer, but using a hairdryer, okay, means that you're doing something that affects the rest of the world. Therefore, that's their pretense for saying that you, America, using America as an example, need to give up a certain amount of your autonomy to this intra, whatever you want to call it, national organization. The world has to overcome, this is Schwab again. The world has to overcome not only the damage done to our economies and our societies by my Sharona, it also has to confront the repercussions of a dangerous clash between major global powers. You see, when a nation asserts its autonomy over itself, okay, self-determination, that's what we've always heard. That's why wars, we were told, were fought over the last 100 years, so that you have the right to self-determination. But people like Klaus Schwab, okay, they say you no longer have the right to self-determination. And what does that come to? What he calls a dangerous clash between major global powers. The dangerous clash is that America says we're America. Okay. The dangerous clash is that the Yellow Jackets in French said we're Frenchmen. I'm not an Englishman. I'm not an Italian. I'm not a Belgian. I'm not an American. Okay. I'm not from Libya or the Sudan. I'm not from Malaysia or China. I am a Frenchman. The Canadian truckers who said, I'm Canadian and I'm a trucker and I don't want to give my power over to global elites. The American who says, I'm an American. We're supposed to have subsidiarity, or what they call in American parlance, federalism, what the church would call subsidiarity. I have local control. All that's done. Don't you get it in the New World Order? That's finished. And people like Harari and people like Klaus Schwab are going to sell that. But they sell it through instilling fear in you. Now, I don't know about you guys out there, okay? Many of you, I assume, are Christian, okay? But Christ said, fear not. Therefore, as a Christian, I fear not Klaus Schwab, Mr. Harari, or the rest of the global elites, okay? I don't fear them in that way. I do fear what they're trying to do. For what? Because I want to live forever? No, I know I'm going to die someday, and I believe I'm going to be judged, and I hope that I go to heaven, okay, and live with Christ and the angels and saints for all eternity, okay? But I do fear for my family. I do fear for future generations. Why? Because I fear a bug, or I fear the temperature changes 1 degree over another from year to year. All you good people out there listening to me live at the front line know where I'm going with that. We want to make sure we don't get taken down by the powers that be at the globalist, the oligarchy out in Silicon Valley. Okay, so that's why I watch my language, but you all know where we're going with that. I don't want to give my authority over my life to any global powers. If anything, if I don't like Democrats in America, okay, at the very least, I have to accept that, well, they were elected, and therefore I am bound to live under the laws of the United States, but I have the power in the United States to unelect them, to vote in somebody else, okay? And I have that power. I could go to the voting booth and I will vote in people who will repeal that law and create laws that I want to see enacted. I have that power. So in that way, I am an American. But I am not giving that power over to unelected bureaucrats and globalists over at the World Economic Summit and to people, like this evil man, okay? Because let's remember something, people say, well, he's just a bureaucrat. Is it fair to call him evil? Yeah, the things that they propose, the things underneath controlling the economy and what they propose, abortion is central to it, transgenderism, homosexuality, the destruction of the family, the destruction of the church, which we could get into also, how we have a pope that seems to buy into this. I pray for him. I don't know why globalists are in the Vatican. That's a conversation we could get into. Okay. But I'm going to fight against you. I don't want what it is that you want to impose on me. I don't want your transhumanism, your transgenderism, your gay marriage, your abortion. I don't want any of it. And I certainly want to throw off any power you have over the economy. Okay. And I want what Trump put in place, quite frankly, on the economics, in the economic sphere. Okay. I want $2 a gallon gas. Klaus Schwab will say that makes me greedy. No, I'm not greedy. I just want to produce our own gas and oil in America because I want it to be at a cheap price. That's why. No, I don't believe you. I don't believe you or AOC, when she cries and says the world's going to come to an end in 2030 unless we confront this existential threat. No, this existential threat, because the temperature moved 1 degree year over year or over a decade in Paris, France, or anywhere else in the world. Went a degree up or a degree down. And they said that means we're all going to die. Okay. I'm not giving you my power. I'm not doing it. And yeah, I want cheap gas. I want cheap oil. Okay. Schwab also praised the World Government Summit as a place for governments to go beyond crisis management. What does that mean? That means that once the Sharona, once they declare that that's over, and they declare that the temperature changed from 1 degree to another in Paris, France, decade over decade, that problem is under control. Well, those are crisis management. They sold the fear, and now they've given themselves power, and now they declare that those things are either non-existent or under control. But then they say we have to go beyond that. See, all you good people out there, listen to their words. We need to now go beyond that. What does that mean? We have the power, and now we want to keep it. This is not a shock. There's many people out there who are saying, okay, all over the place, okay, this is not a shock. They want the power. They're never going to give it back because it's not in the nature of government bureaucrats to give back power. That's why in a real uh let's say call it Democrat Republican, a democratic republic like the United States is supposed to be, but it is not. Okay. We're supposed to be able to take that power back by electing people who we will force to give us that power back. And you could think of myriad ways in the United States where they've taken power and they just simply don't want to give it back, on the right and the left. So don't think I'm exonerating the right. They've gotten us into this boat, both either actively pursuing policies that maybe they're just, let's say, they're Marxist light, if you want to put it like that. Like they buy into all this stuff just on a lower level, but they still buy into it. So Republicans and so-called conservatives, they've all bought into it too. We all know that. So they put us in this boat and they don't do anything to give us our power back. They come to us and tell us they will. We're going to reduce the size of government. No, I want to go back to the 1950s size of government, if you want me to be quite honest with you, or even before then. You people in the federal government do way too much. Again, I'll go back to the Catholic principle of subsidiarity, also known as federalism. We want to bring power back to the local level, and all you oligarchs in Washington have much less power, significantly less power. Okay. So referencing the globalist everlasting crisis of choice, which is the temperature change from 1 degree to another in Paris, France, decade over decade, Schwab said globally interconnected challenges required global collaborative responses at a supra governmental level. That all just means you're toast and I'm toast. That's really what it comes down to. Klaus Schwab even wrote a book celebrating the coronavirus pandemic, not as a crisis, but an opportunity for a new normal. We knew that from the beginning, but our voices were silenced. Okay. They were silenced by big tech. I wonder if YouTube could take me down if I call YouTube a bunch of scumbags. Can they take me? I didn't say anything about the Sharona there. I didn't say anything about climate change. I didn't say anything about it. Okay. I'm calling them scumbags. Do I have the right to do that on YouTube or on Facebook or on any of the social media sites? Do I have the right to call Mark Zuckerberg a scumbag or the people that run YouTube scumbags? I wonder. I wonder if they're going to take me down for hate speech. They think I'm a scumbag. They don't say that, but that's exactly what they think. Okay. Um, they hate you, they hate me, they hate our worldview. So you have to remember, this is what. Now let's get into a different thing. Let's finish up with Klaus Schwab by saying that "Build Back Better" is also the slogan of the Great Reset, and the man who invented it is Klaus Schwab. Simon Kent ends his article that way. Can we really get to what's going on? Why we, as sensible, reasonable human beings, all you good people listening to me out there live at the front line with Joe Pasillo, remember, like, subscribe, and share, and do all that fun stuff to help us out a little bit so that we could spread these messages, so that our voice can become as loud or louder than theirs and raise the consciousness of the American people. Because I'm speaking primarily, I'm sure, to an American, I'm sure, Canadian audience. We need to raise our consciousness. So spread this message. Okay. I don't think I'm saying anything wrong or you disagree with. I think we're saying things that are repetitive. They are out there. But remember something, the left does a fantastic job of repeating the same thing over and over again when they're spreading their lies. Well, if we're spreading the truth, let's keep repeating these things over and over again. Over and over and over again. Let's leave no stone unturned. Let's make sure everybody hears our voices. What is the goal, in your host's humble opinion? Okay. Slavery. Slavery. But now that people would say, well, what do you mean? What do you mean slavery? Slavery. And what does it mean to be enslaved? You have to do the bidding of others, okay, in order to enrich them, empower them. That's the way slavery usually works. That's why all civilizations in ancient times, they took slaves once they conquered them. In the modern times, we had chattel slavery, where, let's say, the economic well-being of the American South, let's say leading up to the American Civil War, rested on slave labor. They enriched themselves economically by stealing the labor of another human being. Slavery is nothing new. It's nothing that we haven't seen all throughout human history. In fact, if you listen to all those nowadays who rail against slavery, okay, the fact is slavery exists now in the world and mostly Arab and Muslim nations. But nobody wants to talk about that because nobody wants to offend people of color. Because if you do that, you're offending Muslims and you're offending people of color. But slavery exists. You have outright slavery, like in China, okay? Those Uyghurs, those Muslim Uyghurs in China are enslaved for their labor that enriches the Chinese Communist Party. You have sex slavery all throughout the world, okay, which enriches those who sell those women into sex slavery. So what is this? What is the slavery I'm talking about? Okay, here's the difference: is a Uyghur knows he's enslaved. That person knows they're enslaved. The girl who has been kidnapped and then drugged up, all right, and is sold into sex slavery, in moments of when the drugs wear off, knows that she is entrapped, she is enslaved. And let's be clear, it is slavery of women. Okay, so we're talking about she's, and that's the proper pronoun, by the way. Kamala Harris, it's she. Um, but what is this slavery? How do you, good people out there, how do I? How does Jonathan Ross? How does my partner in crime, Joe Resinello, at the front line with Joe and Joe? How do we become enslaved? Okay, now we are not going to buy into it, but what we are here to do is to let others know how they become enslaved. What do these new slave masters offer? And I'm not being cheeky. I want you to hear what I have to say here. Okay, they sell you their slavery while convincing you that what they're really providing you is freedom. And they do that through sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I say, what do you mean, Joe Pasillo? What do you mean sex, drugs, and rock and roll? Do I need to go into it with all of you good people out there? Okay. They sell sex. They started selling sex with contraception. They started selling sex during the sexual revolt of the 1960s to throw off the traditional notions of God's plan for sexuality, starting with the Lambeth Conference amongst the Anglicans when the Protestants first said that contraception was okay. The Catholic Church has never done that, but unfortunately, individual Catholics and individual Catholic bishops who don't listen to the church on the teaching on contraception. Pope Paul VI wrote in Humanae Vitae that the contraception and the contraceptive mentality would lead to all this, and he was poo-pooed, even by members of the hierarchy, even by the bishops who revolted against Humanae Vitae. Okay, they sell you sex. And they tell you could go out there, you could have sex with all the people you want. It doesn't matter. Okay, but what happens if I impregnate a woman? Okay, we have abortion. But you shouldn't have to get to that point because we're going to provide contraception. Oh, and by the way, you could have sex with whoever you want. We could prevent disease. You know that you won't get AIDS if you use a condom if you're engaged in sodomy. I remember when they used to sell that during the AIDS pandemic. Okay, use a condom and you'll be just fine. You'll be protected from getting AIDS. They sold that. Dr. Fauci was part of all that, by the way. People forget that about him, but we won't get into the little tyrant on today's program, okay? Because they sold sex and they continue to sell sex. They weaken good men out there by providing pornography, unbridled, unrestricted pornography. You have them right here. You have pornography right here. Click a button. You see anything you want in that regard. So they sell you sex. What does sex do? Sex enslaves you. When you're driven solely by pornography and the pursuit of sex, you are a slave, my friend. And that's what they want. Your will is weakened. You have no will to fight against the oligarchs when you are a sexual slave, when you are addicted to pornography, when you are addicted to the pursuit of sex. So we know that's how they sell this slavery, but they will convince you that what they are doing is they are liberating you from under the yoke of the Christian idea of sex and the Catholic idea of sex in particular. Okay, we don't need sex is not just for procreation, it's for fun. We'll just use it to have fun. And that's how they sell it. And ergo, you will be free. Okay, they've just put one handcuff on you. Let's have the other shoe drop when we talk about drugs. Excuse me, need a little bit of coffee. When it comes to drugs, why I learned when I was a kid, rightfully, and I've had arguments with people, okay, marijuana proponents, particularly, who say marijuana is not a gateway drug. How about you tell that to my dead friends who started with marijuana, who are now dead because marijuana wasn't strong enough for them? And then they moved on to pills, then they moved on to coke, finally moving on to hypodermic needles and the drugs that you inject yourself with through those hypodermic needles, and they ended up dead in alleyways like my best friend growing up. Don't tell me your statistics. Marijuana is a gateway drug because just like any drug, just like pornography, which is a drug at the end of the day. The only difference is pornography releases a drug that's naturally produced in the body. It's called dopamine, okay, which a person can become addicted to. You're addicted to the dopamine. You're not addicted to the sex that you're looking at. You're addicted to the release of the drug in the brain. Okay. It's the same thing with drugs that you either smoke or vape or inject or snort or anything else. The release is what you want. You, of course, are going to be convinced that you're free. Remember the hippie movement in the 1960s, which is hand in hand. Hand in hand. The sexual revolution took longer for the drugs, okay? But we're seeing it now. It all goes hand in hand. Life's just one big party. I want you guys to pardon my language for a minute. Jim Morrison summed it up at the end of the live version of Roadhouse Blues that's available, okay? Okay, I always liked the song Roadhouse Blues. I've always been someone who's always liked classic rock. I've shied away from it as I've gotten older and more Catholic, okay? But at the end of the live version of Roadhouse Blues, Jim Morrison says, "Hey, man," I'm paraphrasing. Hey, man, I don't know what's going to happen, man. I don't know what's going to happen, man. All I know is I want to get my kicks before the whole shit storm comes down. That's Jim Morrison said that. That sums up everything in this conversation. That sums up what the New World Order that Klaus, Schwab, and the rest of them are going to sell you. I want to have my kicks before the whole crap storm comes down. That's what they're selling you. Okay. So the drugs are part of it. They say, well, they're not trying to sell us drugs. Of course they are. Of course, what are you talking about? Okay. The movement of the legalization of drugs in the United States, state by state by state, is meant to do one thing: keep you stupefied, not stupid. I didn't say stupid, okay, because you're not stupid. Many people out there who take drugs are not stupid people, but they have been stupefied. Do you understand? They've been stupefied because they've been sold the idea that drugs are now a good thing. I was taught that they were a bad thing. In my school, First Avenue Elementary School in Newark, New Jersey, the sergeant from the Essex County Police Department used to come in, open up a briefcase, and show us all the drugs. And they used to tell us these are the things that you should not be doing. Okay. And then nowadays they'll tell you that no, drugs are just fine, and they're showing that through the legalization of drugs. So they sell you the sex with the idea that you're liberated. That's one handcuff. They sell you the drugs with the idea that you're liberated. Okay, and that's the other handcuff. And then just as you're about to maybe realize that I'm a slave, I'm actually a slave. Okay. They get all their people in Hollywood to create all the movies. That's where the rock and roll comes in. Okay. All the music industry and all the movies. Okay. And all that crap that comes out of Hollywood. Okay. And the left coast and New York, by the way. All right. They will reinforce in your mind while you're oversexed and stupefied with these beautiful Hollywood stars living that kind of life that they've convinced you that you want to live in. They'll portray it on a screen as a good thing so as to reinforce in your oversexed, stupefied mind that what you're doing is the right thing. And they've now enslaved you. That's my pitch. All you good people joining me live at the front line. That's my pitch to you. That's why, as a Roman Catholic, appealing to other Roman Catholics, other Christians, other people of goodwill, okay? And I mean that sincerely, okay? In other words, I care about your well being. I wish all people would come into the Catholic Church. I will never, ever shy away from that. My job is to evangelize, okay, and try to convince people to come and convert to or revert to the Catholic Church. But I will speak to the Muslims out there and the Orthodox Jews and other non-Catholic Christians where we have overlap on these things. I don't want you to be a slave. I don't. I don't want your kids to be taught this nonsense that I wouldn't want to be taught to my son, okay? And we need to stand up together and fight against it. Okay. I will always preach the truth of Jesus Christ in his church. I will never shy away from that. Okay. Ever, ever, ever. But I could unite with you in this spiritual battle, this battle for our souls, this battle for the souls of our children, because that's what this is. And at the end, who's the master? Who's the master of this world? Who is the prince of this world? Okay. It's Satan. And while everybody is out there saying, oh, here you go with that religious, you're apocalyptic. I don't know if we're in the apocalyptic end times. I have no idea. Okay. I don't know the hour or the day, as Christ said. Okay. Only the Father knows the hour and day. I have no idea. But if you told me Christ was coming back now, given everything I've just described in this video, brushing off the seat of some globalist power, whether it's Antichrist or precursor to the Antichrist. If you told me that that was happening, I would say, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, given everything that's going on out there, where darkness has become light, light has become the darkness. The truth is now passed as a lie. Lies are passed as a truth. You're going to tell me I can't prove that? You tell a 5-year-old kid that he could be a 5-year-old boy that he could become a girl. Tell a 5-year-old girl she become a boy, and then pass it off as the truth and enact it into law. And you're going to tell me that lies haven't become the truth? Of course they have. And unfortunately, we allow it to happen. We allow it to happen. If you ask me, and I'm guilty. I don't say we, just you. I'm including myself in that. Okay, because at times at different elections, I vote for at least a short-term political solution to some of this stuff. I think Trump did some things to put America's hand in the face of the globalist elites to try to keep them at bay. Do I think he did that? Yeah, I think you could demonstrate that. I mentioned earlier about backing us out of the TPP and the Paris Climate Accords. Okay, I think he did a good job in that. That was a step in the right direction. But we need to return in America to a grounding, a foundation that I believe can only be found in Christ. Now, again, if I'm speaking to my fellow Americans who are not Christian, I would say, but are people of goodwill, those people still believe in the moral law, in that foundation, okay? And would want a society that's rooted in that moral foundation. I'm going to break it to all you good people out there listening to me at Live at the Frontline with Joe. America has failed. America was doomed to failure from the beginning because America has had, from its inception, a flawed notion of freedom, a flawed notion of liberty. Okay. We have an organizing principle in America that that is organized around the First Amendment to the Constitution: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, and those things become sacrosanct. And even though those things are important, we still have a warped, perverted notion of freedom. It has to be so. I'm just using a little logic and reason here. The seeds of destruction of the Constitution must be in the Constitution because it's the Constitution that has allowed us to get to this point, that the left dominates every area of our society, including constitutional law. So it must be that there's something wrong with the Constitution. Is it a bad document? Of course not. Of course not. It does lay out the structure of our government, but there's something missing. There's something missing. And what's missing is, yes, the practical application of, even if you don't want to say Christian, I would say Christian principles. Let's say moral principles. Yes, the imposition. I know that makes the left's brains explode. The imposition of moral principles and moral boundaries in our society. You do not have the right to do whatever you want. You don't. That is not freedom. That is not liberty. You don't have the right to do whatever you want, because if you didn't, and people do, I guess, you could kill your babies in the womb. You could stupefy yourself with drugs all you want. You could change your sex from boy to girl, from girl to boy. Evidently, that's what Klaus Schwab and people like that would tell us. Okay? But don't tell me that you're free. And again, to put a finer point on it, my argument is this is all going to lead to our slavery. And what is that slavery going to look like? What I said, you're addicted to sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You're sold that as freedom, but then you are going to have to work. And how do you get paid for your work in this new global structure? Universal basic income. They'll give you enough money. They'll provide the drugs and the sex for free. Okay. They probably will get to the point they'll provide the entertainment for free, because they know that those are the things that keep you enslaved, and will throw you a few bucks. So if you want to go down to McDonald's and clog your arteries, hopefully you'll drop dead quicker than sooner than later. This way we're rid of you. Okay. Don't ask for health care. We'll give you all your freedom, but you have a finite amount of time on this earth. So if you get cancer at 30 years old, don't ask for health care. We're not giving you that. We'll give you everything you want as long as you're alive. But then once you get sick and you're about to die, we'll give you a pill for your pain, but then just go and die. Okay? And we'll give you what you want. Barack Obama said that, by the way. Barack Obama said, these are hard choices we're going to have to make when people get sick. Sometimes we might just have to give them a pill, and this way they're comfortable in their last days. I'm paraphrasing, but he actually did say that in regards to Obamacare, okay, and end of life stuff. But again, this is what they're going to sell us. And the point is that I ain't making it up, because you could see it out there. This Klaus Schwab conversation is just part and parcel of that. This global economic summit, his little puppet, Harari, okay? Don't overlook the fact that this guy is gay, okay? Because he's going to try to normalize the homosexuality. They're going to use him to normalize the homosexuality, which they've been doing a masterful job of. Okay, but it's all part of the same list of things that they're going to sell us. And at the end of the day, you will be a slave to. They will have made you a slave to your own animal desires, and that is ultimately the goal. Your reason no longer controls your lower instincts. Your lower instincts and desires control your reason. That is the new man. That is the new man. That is what the oligarch wants. Get that straight. The new man is the abolished man, because it will be the abolition of man, because that is not a man. That human person that they're trying to create, that they swear they can, that they believe in their hearts they can actually break you in that way and force you to do that, okay, and become that slave of theirs, okay, that represents the abolition of man. Now, C.S. Lewis used that phrase, and that was the title of one of his books. I'm not alluding to C.S. Lewis, because I don't know if that's how he would describe the abolition of man. Maybe he would, okay? I haven't read the book, but to me, that is the abolition of man. That is the new man, which is the abolition of man. And that's exactly what the oligarchs want. We'll leave it there, because ultimately I have to go to work. I have to go to work. And I want to thank you. Thank you all for joining me here, listening to my little rant. I hope I made sense. I think I'm making sense here. And if the Frontline with Joe and Joe goes live Sunday nights, 8:00, all over social media. Live at the Frontline, we're shooting for twice a week. Sometimes work gets in the way, but Jonathan Ross will always try to give me an opportunity to come on and talk about a thing. I think this thing was important to talk about today. FrontlineTV.com, thefrontlinetv.com. Okay. I think you should, I hope that you would follow us there and support us there. If you'd like to throw in a few bucks every month and become a monthly subscriber, we don't ask for much. If you want to throw in $5 a month, eventually we'll get to 1 million subscribers and we'll use that money to try to change the world. Who knows? Right? We're not looking to enrich ourselves. We don't really get paid for what we do now. We don't make any money, but we will continue to do it because the goal of what we're doing is much more important, which is to encourage people out there, to enlighten people, to educate people as to what's going on in our own way. All right. So the frontlinetv.com is where you can subscribe. Anywhere, please, that you see us on social media, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notifications, and most importantly, share the video. Offer us feedback. There's a lot of people in the comment box right now. Thank you for your feedback. Okay. Jesse's out there, said, great show, Joe, and many other people. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. We love your support and your prayers, most importantly. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We will talk to you soon.